Hello everyone and welcome back to the Keep Productive YouTube channel. It is Francesco here, and in today's feature we're actually going to be touring an application called Coda. We're going to be looking at the web version today, but we're also going to be talking about how this application works, what it is, and also a little bit of information about opinions, pricing, and things like that. And we will be including timestamps, so if you do want to skip ahead to a certain category or feature to check whether it is suitable for you and your business or just yourself using it, that's absolutely fine. You can skip ahead using the timestamps in the description. So here we are with Coda. Coda is available at coda.io, Indigo Oscar, and you can access it for free. It doesn't have any pricing plans at the moment, but they do intend to add them later in the year. Now it is available on web. We'll be demonstrating it on web today, but it's also available on iOS and Android, and the applications work pretty smoothly. Now, for those who are curious about what Coda is very simply a way to create documents that have a little bit of an app abilities in being able to create your own workspace. It sort of fuses both project management and document creation. And the best way I normally describe it to people is imagine you take Google Documents and Google Sheets, which is an Excel competitive application, and imagine if they had a baby, and imagine if that baby had some superpowers, because this application does have some abilities with automations and also with interactive table and board elements that you can add, which give it a bit of a project management edge. So let's start by going over to the new document. Now, what you can do to start is you can obviously create a new document from scratch. It connects up with your Google account. So obviously you sign in with your Google account and it will use your Google Drive as storage. And Coda documents themselves don't take up too much space. So as you can see here, you can actually import from Excel or Google Sheets, from Trello or from CSV files, which is really easy. And we'll actually come to the template side of stuff a little later. But let's go ahead and create a brand new Coda document. Now, as you can see, this is the web version. At the top, what appears is a very simple editing bar. So this will give you full editing access to your actual document, and you can get started. You've also got a few abilities up here, very similar to Google Docs in a sense. You can open up comments, open up your document maps, similar to a sitemap, open automations, open packs. We'll talk about this a little later anyway. And you can share also in the top right hand corner. So it's pretty simple in terms of its structure. You can go ahead and title the document here. In this case, we're going to create a manual for new employees, if my spelling isn't awful. And let's add an A there. So you can see here, actually, I've even spelled it wrong there. So you can see here that obviously the first thing I can do is I can add an icon. And as you can see here, I can add anything that they create. So for example, if I wanted to type in note, it will search the actual icons they have available, and you can add an icon to your actual the start of your document. So it's very simple. You get a few options to start. So you get the ability to create a table, which is really simple. You can use other applications to import, and that's if you want to create a document. And also here you get to view the table as, and also templates. But that's once you create a table. So you can actually change the view of the table to something like a calendar, a chart, or even a board if you want to. And you can use some of the templates as well, but we'll actually talk about the document templates that you can create. Now in the bottom right hand corner, you might have this intercom option, which gives you access to some of the team. I'm just going to clear that, but if you did want to chat to the team, it is available there. So maybe I want to start with a welcome page for this manual for the new employees. Maybe I want to warmly welcome them to the team. So obviously you can add an icon to each of the different sections you create. So there's two sort of core experiences here in organization. Is a section, which is essentially a note in given sense. So you can, when you click a section, you can start editing straight away, and you can create what's called a folder. So I might type this important areas as the folder, and then we'll add some sections below it a little later. But if I want to, I can go ahead and rename that, delete that, and even add a new section below it. So as you can hear, when I create a new section below it, it adds that beneath the folder. But we'll come to that in a moment. We're actually on the welcome section document. So let's start with a bit of the abilities up here because you can get started pretty easily. So up here, it works in the same sense as a Google document or even a Word document. You can add headers ranging from H1 to H2 to H3. You can add some underlying and strike throughs. These are all regular stuff you get in text formatting. You also get the ability to change the text color and the highlight. And also, your regular bullet points, numbered bullet points and indents, and also hyperlinks, emotions or emoticons, and also commenting, which is useful for if you're chatting with teams. So let's get ahead and start typing a heading. So we're going to say, welcome to all the new employees. And as you can imagine, it works in very similar sense as a document. So we're actually going to go ahead and open this one up. This is the insert button. And essentially when you open up the insert button, you get a range of different options. As I said, you can create a table. Table can be used from existing data from an Excel, Trello file, or even a CSV, or you can create a new table from scratch. You can create cards, which is essentially boards. We'll come to that a little later. A calendar, very easy to use. Detail, which is essentially like a sort of like a contact file. We can actually add this a little later when we're looking to add, who to contact in a new company. And a chart as well. So you can add a range of different charts. If you and your team have got maybe a timeline that you want to work on, a Gantt chart might be suitable. But if you've got a pie chart, which may be showing the success of a recent marketing campaign, or a line chart, that might be useful to use towards that. And you've even got scatter, bubble, area, and bar charts. Now you can add regular stuff like multimedia like images. You can tag people in specific rows. You can use formula, which we can probably touch in on a separate video because the formula is actually a dedicated video. We'll show you the basics of it, but it's a dedicated video in itself because they're quite advanced, and that's probably what makes it step out in terms of applications like alternative like Notion and things like that. You can also embed a range of files like video, maps, Google Maps, Google Drive files. And the good thing about the Google Drive files is it connects to your Google Drive account, so you don't need to do much work there. Social, for example, Twitter, etc. Forms, design and audio. You can actually create buttons, which is something you cannot do inside of apps like Notion. It actually provides you with a way to connect up a button to an automation. So for example, if you hit a button, you could connect it to Slack, which tells Slack to do something. It takes a little bit of work, but it's actually worth it. And a control center allowing you to do a range of different abilities like create a checkbox, give a date range, use select and multi-select, and sliders and scale. Now you have the ability inside of here to also add document templates, and that's quite easy to do. So you can actually access document templates. We'll probably come back to them separately because obviously we want to touch on this sort of creating this first initial page. So obviously when we welcome all the new employees, what's best to do next is probably good news. You're part of the company. So obviously just below it, what we might do is add a checklist of things to get started with. So we're going to add a heading 2 and we're going to put your first day checklist. And as you can see, what we're going to do is go up to the top here. We're going to go to control and press checkbox. So in this case, we're just going to call it checkbox 1 because there's really nothing more than that. And the great thing is you can connect it up with other tables and things like that later. But for example, if I want to say meet your team and agree KPIs, key performance indicators. And you can go ahead and add some more checkboxes if you like there. Now, if you wanted to actually just turn this into a sort of bullet list, that might be easier. Maybe you don't want that sort of difficult automation to get started, then you can do, and obviously add that list there. Okay, so we've gone ahead and added a few to that checklist that might be useful for getting started. Now, as you can imagine, this can be useful when you're adding specific team members in. For example, if you wanted to make it very personal to the marketing department, you could @mention just by pressing @ and referencing a name or even a table that might be useful for later. They've got quite good instructions, so if you want to use and follow their instructions, that can be quite easy to do so. So let's start by checking out the sort of meeting your team, reviewing the team and their roles. So let's go ahead and create an important area. Let's call this section, let's actually name it the team, because this might be a useful sort of page for them to land on, be able to find out who the team is, who they're working with, and what makes it so exciting. Okay, so we've gone ahead and created a brand new page of who's in our team, and maybe what we want to do here is go up and insert a brand new detail database. Now, there are a range of different databases, and we'll actually show everything from the table to the cards to the calendar to the charts, but we're going to choose something called the detail, and the detail is a way for you to view a bit more detail in a static view, and let's demonstrate how you could potentially use that. So here it lands on this sort of like strange database looking page that might be a bit complex when you're looking at it, but it's actually a lot more simple than you think. Maybe you want to add some key information like a name, fun fact, and the key role at the company, and maybe an image as well that we might want to have accessible. And what we're going to do is just rename this database to team and get to know as a title. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to press this click edit layout, and there are a range of different layouts that you can have, and you can obviously add whatever you like to it, but in this case we're just going to go ahead and choose one of the pre-selected ones, and you can see here that it's brought up a range of different options, and this is actually perfect for our needs because we've got an image column here, a title column here, which is perfect for the name, a new column for the key role that they have, and the fun fact. So we don't really need to do anything else apart from, because I mentioned it's a static database that we don't necessarily want people to add anything to. We're going to change this and take the comments and activities off. So let's go ahead and edit these before we actually approve it as a finalized layout. So all I have to do that is go into the settings and make sure the alignment's right. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with everything appearing like that. Then I'm going to make sure that it's in the right format of the column. So you can see here, you can change different formats. For example, you can tag people, add a button, add a checkbox, add images, add lists. In this case, we don't actually have to do anything here. I'm going to change this to key responsibilities. And we're also going to do the same with the column here. So we're going to say fun fact. And there we go. So we've got a column that we need to add to and a column that's easy to modify. All we need to do to almost press save is basically get out of this view. So you can see here that it's appeared in a bit of a different view. And the only thing that I actually missed out doing is adding an image here. So what I need to do is make sure that the image will appear here. So one of the mistakes I made is I didn't actually add an image column here. I needed to. All I did to do this was press the plus button down here and select the image as an option. Now it did, and sometimes you will have a little bit of a fussy mess by creating text areas. All you have to do to get rid of them is add them into the hidden columns area. And once you select off, you should have an image area, a name area, a key responsibilities, and fun facts. So let's go ahead and modify this. Let's introduce the first member of the company, who is Frodo Baggins. And let's go ahead and add an image for that. So you could do something like that for anything really. And for example, if you wanted to have a list of locations that are available, then you could do this for an event or even anything like that. So it's really easy to get started with. Now, maybe you want to add some of their key responsibilities. In this case, you might want to say, for example, key responsibilities are navigation to Mount Doom. And the fun fact might be that I wear mithril. And that's an awful spelling of mithril. But you're starting to get a bit of an idea of how you can use this in a team situation. So maybe you want to add the same. For example, you could say Samwise, add an image of them, add key responsibilities, and also fun facts as well. And it's quite nice because you get this sort of preview of who's there as well. Now, if you had any hidden columns, you can actually have a section here. So for example, if you wanted like contact information that you didn't want necessarily to preview, but have access in hidden columns, you can do so. So it's almost like a drop down to some extent. So that's a good way to introduce your team using the sort of the interactive database for detail. Now let's go ahead and go back to the welcome page and see what else we need to do. So we've sort of introduced a team. Maybe we want to set some key performance objectives. So in this case, I've created a section up here. I'm going to drag that just below there, and I'm going to retitle this one to OKRs. So what's the word for that? Objective key results or something like that. I went to university to study business. That's awful. I shouldn't know that. So let's go ahead and add a new header for key performance objectives. And let's retitle this one to KPIs. And what we're going to do below here is we're going to utilize some of the cards function. So the good thing is here, you can automatically see that the cards become interchangeable. So for example, if I wanted to insert the cards view from the details area, I could do so, and that's quite easy to connect up. But in this case, I want to create a new cards area. Now you can see it appears pretty much like a board in Trello per se. And what I can do here is I can say progress, call this one progress, and get started. Now we're going to come back to all of these lovely things here and how you can utilize them. So don't worry guys, we will be coming back to that. So here I might want to say a task that I'll get started. And the great thing is once you open this up, it brings up this lovely brand new view. But for example, if I'm getting started and I wanted to create almost like a template or a layout that would be more suitable, I can do the exact same as I did in the details area. For example, I wanted to see like a bit of a clearer task title, the status of the task, and maybe I could go ahead and below and add a few more details. So for example, I wanted to say person responsible to, or person it affects. This is awful because you're not meant to type that sort of stuff. And then I can connect it to a person in the team. So for example, you can have multi-select on. So if you want to set more than one person, and also display avatar on too. So this is quite useful. So I've got a sort of setup I'm happy with. I'm going to go off that. And I can also connect it up with the person. And in this case, it's just me and the team. But if you want to invite somebody on, which will show you in the sharing settings, you can do so. So here I can actually modify the task title. One of my key performance objectives might be to achieve 4,000 followers on Twitter. Say, and if I come off that, as you can see here, you can get a bit of an idea for the person it affects, and also you can drag them very much to a card system between the different statuses. So you and your team members could, your boss could set you sort of some key performance objectives on here and allow you to just get started with them. Now, again, this might be like, you might want this to actually move this to your own personal area, but if this is a team one, all of your team can modify this in real time and actually view this in a bit more detail. And the great thing is I can open this up anytime and add any comments below here and scrabble between the existing tasks that are available in here. So let's go ahead and add a few tasks to this area. So there we go. I actually added the person it affects, or the person it's connected to the Keep Productive, and you can see it appears in the preview, and I added some titles there. So I could just be able to bring them across. And if I wanted to be able to add new columns that would correlate to this, all I have to do is add the new group. And for example, I could say like beginning stage or something like that. If I wanted to have a real indication, and I can drag that there. And I can go, okay, I've actually just started the beginning stage of winning that contract with Sony. Now, those are the KPIs. Let's go back to the welcome page and let's see, unwrap your new Office presence. That's something that I don't really need to do much with. And I could say, order your new laptop for work. So maybe we need to say, create a new section for laptop orders for your team. And this could be a useful internal wiki, so I added a little laptop icon for that and add that below the KPIs. Let's add it to that important areas. And in this case, I might want to add a heading like laptop order form and actually connect it up to an existing application I had. So for example, in this case, I could go to embed and press form and connect up with this specific Typeform document. And this might be really handy for ordering a new laptop form. And I could use Google Forms for that if I wanted to. They don't actually have a form ability right now, but this is something you can add. So let's go ahead and add a new type form, or Google form in this case. So I'm going to go over to Drive. And as you can see here, this is a good explanation of the sort of experience. So you can see here that I've got a manual for the new employees that has appeared in here. As you can see, it's available inside of, everything is created inside of your Google Drive. And you can see here that the size is very small, like there's practically nothing at the start. And of course, I don't think there's a limit to how much you can store, although I've got 2 terabytes of data. So here I wanted to go ahead and create a brand new form for the new laptop sign up. And I'm just going to show you how this works really briefly. So I'm going to go ahead and create a quick laptop sign up form. Okie dokie, I'm happy with that form. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the link. I'm going to go back to the Coda area and paste it here. So I'm going to go ahead and press create. And as you can see, that form is brought in, and I can get rid of that and make sure that it's spanned out across the piece. So for example, let's say I'm a brand new member. I go, okay, I'm pretty happy. I'm going to go and order my laptop. And all I have to do now is go ahead and sign it in and submit that form through Coda. So that's a really neat way of doing it. Again, as I said, you can find that through the embed. You can actually use Typeform and I believe a Zapier integration as well. So let's go back to the welcome area. What I can do here as well is, it looks like I want an area for visiting marketing pages for numbers. So let's say I wanted to see the success or progress of the company. And I can see here an icon has been created for me. If I go down, I maybe add it below KPIs. I'm going to go ahead and create a table. And a table is very similar to like an Excel or anything like that. And it's actually really easy to use. So for example, I wanted to set performance to date or so far. I could create a new area for that. And as I said, I can go ahead and create new columns. It's really easy to do so. So in this case, I want to say platform because we're doing marketing here. And I want to say number. I want to change this one to format table as a number, not a percentage. Francesco, number. And I want to say current number, current followers, because maybe they're tracking the success of their social media campaigns. Okay, so there we go. I've added current folders in terms of a text formatting. And the final area I want to say is I want to associate the person as well. So in this case, I want to have just one person and display the avatar. And I want to rename this column to role and add a brand new column. So I can add a range of different columns. You can see here that loads appear. And I could say, I could even connect it to the person to speak to about this, or even other such values from existing tables we've created. But in this case, I'm going to create a checkbox. I'm going to say done, so we can see who's done this. So let's go ahead and start adding details to these. So you can start to see a good idea of how this works. You can use it like a table. It's really easy to use. And if I want to shuffle that down, I can do. You can add new groups or new columns really easily and modify everything quite well. You can add loads of formula. You can summarize. So for example, if I wanted to see how many collective followers do we have, I could go to summarize the sum of that. And at the bottom, that will appear. If I want to add a new row, I can add that here. And it can even change everything down here to what that looks like. Like, for example, the count is 3. Count here, or the sum is 7,200. And I can also tick this off as I go along. So it's a very, very simple table. There's nothing to it, really. As I said, you can invite people and invite a person directly. And this may be a good opportunity to show you that you can actually share it with other people. We'll actually go through the sharing a little closer to the end. So, right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the welcome area. Now, in this case, I'm going to neaten this up a little bit. Okay, so if I wanted to connect up, for example, the team page to that area, all I have to do is copy the URL of it, go back to the welcome area, and replace it. And as you can see team, get to know, and you can click into that and get access quite fast. Even though they might be able to see it here, it's quite easy to access that. And the same for KPIs. For example, if I wanted to add the KPI section there, I can add it beautifully there. And you can see it, I can click in quite easily. So the good thing is as well, if I wanted to order the laptop, I could do the exact same thing. And in this case, I could actually just copy that and paste it. So it's really easy to do so, and it's great for easy access to you and your team. You can also do that same as I mentioned before with particular people. So admin for Coda, you could say you can @tag keep productive, and there we go. So you can add that there, and you can see that I'm the person to contact, and you can say Francesco @keepproductive.com. Spelled it awfully there, and you can also get a link to that automatically. So that's one of the neat things. You can even be really detailed and add an emotion there, so that it adds a bit more detail. So the good thing is there's a little bit of an ability to some extent to be able to add data from pages in a live view. So for example, if you wanted to actually add, maybe we want to say the KPIs or something like that, like let's just add a KPI there. You can add a link to a KPI. So for example, you could say like, get started on your first project, and then actually drag this one or select it, Control X and paste it there. So you can start to see if you wanted to create a real customized sort of experience for that brand new member, they can click in and actually see a bit more detail about the file. So this is really customizable, and I've seen a lot of cool sort of setups as you're getting going with your account. Now, as I said, you can use the emotions to really just brighten up your space. So that's a basic internal wiki. That's really very, very basic and a good way to get started. Now let's show you some of the more advanced abilities. I want to show you this for particularly teams and individuals that are looking to sort of take us to a new level with their existing applications. And we're also going to then jump into templates. So maybe I want to go ahead and start using some comments inside of this key performance objectives area. Me and my team want to discuss this. Now, as I said, you can open these up and chat in comments here. You can actually see activity and comments. So any changes that a team member has made, you can even add comments and tag people. So for example, I once said, let's check this out. And I can post it there. And you can reply directly into comments and also edit and delete threads really, really easily. Now, comments can be accessible up in the top right hand corner. I can see active comments. All comments that have been resolved are up here. So all of the ones that will appear in my feed should appear there. And if I wanted to as well, I could go to the home page and actually see all of the notifications that I have got from existing Coda areas and Coda things like that. Now, up here, you've also got the ability to connect up and see a document map. So you can see all the tables you've created so far, how they link up, and how many rows and columns have been created. And you can see the different views that have been created, the custom views, which we'll actually jump into again after this, because it's a more of an advanced feature. And also who's been referenced. So for example, in this case, you can look up and see who's been mentioned to some extent. So you can see a real sort of really good detailed view of how many tables and how many times they've been viewed up here. It's almost like a sitemap, but for, I guess, your team's interactive elements. Now I go to here, I can then see the automations I've got set up. So for example, if you and your team wanted some rules created, so for example, like send an email when a task is completed. So in this case, I want to say, I want to set this up, and you'd have to connect up your Gmail to that. You have to connect up a specific amount of applications. Obviously, when you're doing that sort of thing, you can notify a team member when a certain area has been updated. And it basically goes through the ruling. So for example, you can say when the row has changed, you can say that in the actual table, and you can select a specific column like the completed, and you can press that play, so that tests whether it works. And then it will notify specific user, in this case me, a message that this has worked. So I just have to test that one, and it looks like the notification has been sent to me. So I can then reset the test if I want to, but once it's on, you can actually see the activity that has happened. In this case, that's actually been practiced out. So all I have to do is press this one to check whether it's working, and I should have got a notification up in the top right hand corner. You can see here that the status of the task has happened. So that's an automation example, and you can obviously set that up with your own existing ones. So let's see whether that's been done. We need to add a rule here, and we need to say when a row has been changed in the table of progress, and we're going to say the status has been changed because that's quite important. We're going to just test that, and as you can see, it's returned something, and we're going to say, and then what happens is I get a notification to specific user, and that's myself, and the message is that the step 1 has been completed. So that's step 1 there. So if I press start and I go and turn this one on, so what should happen is if I move this across, I should get some sort of notification. Up in the top right hand corner, you should see it's been notified that the status of this one has changed. Now you might be able to actually access that in the activity log, but if you wanted a specific to see whether ones has been specifically changed for any reason, then you can set that up, and that's really your own to play around with. I know people have actually set up like the actual weather updates every morning to appear, and there's actually some really good help videos if you want to go much deeper in that. As I said, formula and automations is really something that we should go much deeper in a separate video. So you've also got packs up here. You can add a new pack, and that basically connects up with your existing apps like Intercom, Slack, Google Calendar, Wikipedia, Spotify. So for example, if you wanted to start like the morning with your team getting a Spotify song, and they press play on that one and it starts playing on their Spotify, then that's something you can do. And you can also send updates and reminders in Slack, which is something I know a lot of people will like. And let's just show you that one actually. So all you have to do is sign in to install them. So it will bring you to this like authentication page for Slack. And I'm going to go ahead and press confirm, because you just check whether settings are happy. And you can see only you is the one who gets connected up with the Slack. So for example, this is a bit of a basic guide to get started, but all I'd have to do is, for example, so let's say I wanted to go to the table that I created earlier. There is an option to actually sort of start messaging in Slack when something has changed. But in this case, we're going to go down to button, and we're actually going to set this button up. We're going to go to format column, and we're going to go down to set the action as message, post message in Slack. So maybe this label will be changed to update me, and select an account, the user's profile, and in this case we're going to select the content as the current followers. So maybe I want to see the current followers, and I want to change the button icon so that it comes through as that. So logically, if I go ahead and press, for example, change this one there and press the update me button, it should message me in Slack with that update. So maybe I want to add the actual channel name as questions, and if I go ahead and press update me, so once I press that and got that set up, the button appears and an external action is performed once I press it. So let's go to the Slack channel and see whether the information was sent. So there we go, you can see that the actual information was sent, a bit of an update on the actual number. So if you want to connect up a channel with that, that's something you can do so quite easily. So being able to use the packs as a way to basically see or connect up with any existing services you use, like Google Calendar, and perform these mini automations using buttons and also using two-way reminders and updates, this is quite easy to do so. Now the final sort of addition on the side is to present the document, so you can actually scan through the different areas in this sort of non-editing view, and it's quite a handy way to do so. So if you want to present it, that's something you can do. Now, before we dive into the actual sort of tables and showing you how to change the different views and a bit more about the filtering side of stuff, let's show you how you can share a Coda document. Now, sharing a Coda document is easy. You can see that you press the share button and you can get a shareable link. And this is very similar to the access that you can use with the likes of Google Drive. So anything when you share a Google document, you can actually set up the can view and play, or can comment, or can edit, and you can actually invite individual email addresses to view, comment, or edit. You can actually embed this, which is quite easy. So if you want to embed this on a website, but the cool thing is you can actually set a start. So for example, if you want to set it to start at the KPIs, embed a specific section, then you can do so. And that's quite a neat addition. So they're the sharing abilities inside of Coda. They're actually very good and very impressive. Probably a lot better than Notion's ones at least. So now we're going to show you how each of these react when you change the view. And the view is something that you can do just by pressing display. You can change it to a range of different views. There's table, there's card view, which is essentially board view, calendar, charts, and details. Now, if I change this into a table view, this is what it would look like. Obviously, it takes all of the columns into play, adds the image at the end. You can obviously modify it, move it around. You can go ahead and delete columns if you don't want them. You can obviously change the title of them and press enter. And naturally, it works as a very similar table. So if I wanted to go to a different view, in this case, if I wanted to go to a calendar view, you can't actually because it doesn't have any start dates and things like that. You can see there that it takes the key responsibilities as the information there, but that's if you want to change it to a bar view. But really, this is why I explained it. It's probably better as a as the view we had it before. You can see it looks all right in card view. If I opened it up, you can see information on each person. But if I wanted to, obviously I can change the display at any given time, see all the displays I have access to. But in this case, the access here is absolutely perfect. Now, if I wanted to go to KPIs, I could do the exact same thing. Now, let's say I wanted to go inside of each of these documents and set a due date. All I'd have to do is click the layout change, add a new column, and maybe I want to say due date to the task. Change the format column to a date and time, and give it a date and time of the actual sort of number layout and what time it is available. And then I'm going to go ahead and edit out of this view. So you can see the due date appears now in here. So this is handy. Let's add a few due dates to these. Let's say it's the 31st of 7th, 19. And you can see here that this can easily be. So I'm just going to go ahead and change that actually because I just want the date in this case. So I'm going to put the date is a different day. So I'm going to go out of here. Sometimes that can be a little bit fiddly to play with, but I want to press 07/31/19 and there we go. It gives you an option to actually select a date. So there we go. A due date has been added, and maybe I want to add these two with a due date as well. Maybe say next month sometime. That's the end of this month, and go to next month and select the 13th. So there we go. I've got a few due dates there, and if I just remove this side here, I can go to the display option and go to calendar, and now you can see that these appear in the calendar. I can also change it to week view, day view, and even go to when it's view from the first event, and even view from the last event. So the calendar is quite easy to do, and I can even drag it on to the actual experience and give it a bit of a time to get started with. And I can do that same with the other ones. I can go to month view. I can skip ahead. See when new contract appears there and move it between days. So this is really easy to access and really easy to modify. So I can actually move it to certain times. So the calendar view is quite good to use. Now let's go to progress. We created a table view. This can be viewed in many different views. One of them is obviously cards. So if I quickly move it to cards, I can see there that it moves into that view. One of the views that I didn't mention here, which might be quite useful in this case, is changing it to a chart view and actually going to the Gantt view. So let's select the due date. So there's a good example. You need to have two separate dates connected with this one. But once you do, obviously you can see it in this sort of progress timeline view and actually move it across, but you just need 2 dates. So if I wanted to, all I'd have to do is go to the layout and add a end date and change the format to a date and the same sort of date setup, and then go to out of the edit view and modify this to be September. So you can see there that one's been changed to September. That one should appear in the view. Which one did I use? I used that one. So let's see this one in a different view. So if I change this one to end date, you can see there we go. The win new Sony contract appears across a couple of months. So it takes a little bit of fiddling around with, but actually is a really neat way to be able to see stuff in different views. So guys, that was a bit of an idea of how the tables work. Let me just show you how the filtering side of stuff works. So for example, if I wanted to, I could obviously change the display, add a filter. If I wanted to add a filter, for example, and the end date is past or is further along, or today plus 1 day, I could do so. So for example, I want to see any days that are today or the next day. That's quite easy to do so. So you can set up these filtering. I would say it's a little bit more complicated than the likes of Notion, but it works fairly well and it does do a good job. You can also use sorting based on a certain sort of status. So for example, the task itself, or maybe the status, or the person it affects only keep productive projects. So you can add different groups and sorting by ascending, descending, what due dates start. You can even add conditional formatting rules as well. Now, if you want to, you can open this up in sort of a full view, which is quite nice. To exit that, all you have to do is go to that view. So you can do this with a range of different tables. Obviously, if you wanted to see the sort of visibility of these sort of files. So for example, if I wanted to get rid of these ones, I could hide them so they don't appear in this sort of preview view. And the same with filters here is if I wanted to say which ones are done, value is true. So anything that's true should appear. There we go. And if I wanted to set the thing to false, then you can see that the ones that are not done will appear. And then if I change this back into table view, you can see that sort of rule is still applied, and you can change whether the fields have been done or not there. So there is a nice abilities of sorting and filtering inside of each of the tables that you have inside of Coda, but it works pretty smoothly. Now guys, let's show you a little bit inside of Coda's magical area. If I go back to coda.io, maybe remove a few of these files here. So all I have to do to access the templates area is go over to see templates. Now, as you can see, there are a range of templates, and if I go to coda.io/templates, I can see all of the ones that might relate to me. So for example, if I wanted to be able to get started with, for example, the to-do list, Lane's to-do list. This is an approach on to-do list applications. It's already pre-built it. And if I wanted to copy the document to my area, I could do so. And copying's really easy. Now, what I would say is definitely to start with this. When you're building something from scratch, you should only do it if it's really necessary. So as you can see here, it should have copied it into my area. Let's see whether it did. Maybe it just didn't like that copy. Let me just check. So there we go. It's copied it into my area now. You can see here that it gets you started with a bit of an explainer on what that does. It gives you like the concepts, like an active list. And you can basically get started using these ones because it gives you the tools, it gives you the explanation, and you can actually utilize these to your own effort. And they're all automatically already set up with all of the filters, with all of the complex conditional formatting, and also the automations that you might already need and have set up. So it does have some controls also access to as well. So what I would recommend is actually trying the template gallery. Spend a bit of time trying the demos, checking out their pre-selected ones. As I said, you can go to the actual sort of template suggested for you and get started. But let me just show you something that could be quite useful if you're already started in Coda. I want a bit of an idea of like how to get started. So for example, if you were like, okay, I want a content calendar just below here, you can go up here. Actually, no, you go up here, sorry, and show templates. Now, if I wanted to find specifically a content calendar, all I'd do is search for it. And all I'd have to do is drag it in. So that's another way to access templates. You can quickly get started using this view. And this is really, really handy. So this is one of my recommendations, is really just to save yourself some time and use the templates gallery to find stuff really fast. There's a range of ones here, like if you want a to-do list, a photos area, a daily journal, anything CRMs, time trackers, Instagram post table, which might have been handy here. Or for example, let's say I wanted to say and set up a team's goals or OKR section. You can just paste that in and get started straight away. It really will save you some time. So guys, I really, really hope you enjoyed this Coda overview. Please do let me know in the comments below whether you have any questions or queries about Coda. Hopefully this gave you a bit of a tour of the basics at least, and I really hope that you find some value. If you are new here on Keep Productive, I implore you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We try and do as many tutorials like this as possible and plan to do this with other tools that you might be looking at. So please do check out all of our content. Anyway guys, thanks so much, and I'll talk to you guys very, very soon. Cheers everyone.